Hello everyone, I'm Chase.
And I'm Joby.
And that is the 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road, and this is the Overrun. Okay, let's talk about what this Jesus truck is. Wow, that's really hot. This is a Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road. So here MSRP is $42,900. However, ours is carrying quite a heavy price premium over that, which is going to put it in range of some different competitors, which we'll get to in a moment. What you need to know is that this has been redesigned for the 2024 model year. It's a full redesign. So gone is the V6. We've now got a 4-cylinder in here instead, a mild hybrid one at that, which we'll tell you more about in a little bit, as well as a totally new exterior design, as you can see, which looks vaguely similar to the old one, but there's still some newness, especially inside, which is an entirely new and totally different interior with Toyota's latest infotainment, off-road drive modes, selectable four-wheel drive, the works. So what does all that get you? Well, this one here behind me will run you $54,829, and that is with the $8,800 TRD Off-Road Premium Package. That gets you all the nice stuff, the ventilated seats, the big infotainment screen, the leather seating surfaces, the adaptive cruise control software, I believe is also on here, an AC power inverter, basically anything bougie that isn't just strictly off-road equipment. So with that in mind, let's talk about what's under the hood. Okay, so under the hood right there is a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now that makes about 278 horsepower and 317 pounds-feet of torque. It's also mated to a selectable four-wheel drive system with a litany of off-road drive modes, most of which we'll get into during our drive impressions. Now, we're seeing some pretty fuel economy, as you might expect from a downsized motor with a four-wheel drive powertrain. Even in two-wheel drive mode with eco mode activated, Joby and I were seeing about 16 miles per gallon on the way up here, and after some light off-roading, that includes some highway and city driving as well. So fuel economy is not super great. It'll probably come up a little bit as we drive back down and are on the highway for a while, but definitely something to know. However, Toyota does offer a hybrid powertrain in the new Tacoma rather, for the first time, which is very nice. So if you're looking for a little bit more fuel economy and a little bit less time at the gas pump, that is always an alternative. So let's talk about what this competes with next.
Before we discuss anything else with the Tacoma, let's briefly touch competition. Now, earlier this year, we had the chance to drive the main competitor, one of the main competitors to the Tacoma, and that is the Chevy Colorado TrailBoss. Now, the TrailBoss comes in at about $10,000 cheaper. It starts at around $38,000, whereas this starts out at $48,000. Now, for the money, you get a much nicer interior here in the Tacoma, but all in all, you can build the Tacoma really however you want. It's more of an a la carte experience. You can pick and choose different options that you want. You can even get a 6-foot bed rather than the 5-foot bed that is currently on this truck. You can really do a lot of things. Whereas the Colorado, you're sort of locked into one of, I believe, 5 different trim levels. We obviously drove the TrailBoss, but there's a ZR2, which gets you a little bit nicer interior, some other off-road stuff. But by and large, if you want to really customize the truck or the off-road truck that you're buying, the Tacoma allows you to do that, whereas the Colorado, you're just picking one of the 5 different trims. The last thing I wanted to touch on with sort of the competition differences is in the Colorado, you get a much larger cab, and that is especially true for the rear seats. So if you have some rear passengers, they're going to enjoy a little bit more legroom, but we'll get into that in the interior segment of this video.
Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, the interior in the 2024 Tacoma is brand new. Now, the biggest thing that you'll notice is, well, this big-ass screen. It's Toyota's latest infotainment system, and it is pretty darn responsive. You can do pretty much anything you want to it, and it will respond. There's also some vehicle settings up in here, trip information, phone, things like that. Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, which is very nice. And it works pretty darn well. Now, let's move over to the gauge cluster. I'll maybe just take it from Joby. Yeah. So let's talk gauge cluster. It's a brand new digital gauge cluster, and there's a little bit of configurability. We have talked about this in our other new Toyota product videos. There's not as much configurability as we would like to see in these. You can kind of tab through a couple different presets to get through some of your various displays, and you can also change what is in these various windows. It's decently configurable, and it's kind of nice that you can keep a few options loaded up. So if I want my off-road stuff, let's get out of this menu real quick. I can just tab over to it, which it's not going to let me do now because I'm trying to show you, of course. There we go. So I can pull up my off-road stuff, and then I can have my fuel economy and other sort of city driving things in there. Now, let's talk about the rest of the interior. These cup holders are weirdly small. This is like a really small water bottle, and it like just barely fits. There's ones in the door that are also really small, and they're kind of hampered by that panel above it, which has some tactical mole stuff, so you can put some, I don't even know what you would need to put on there, more storage. Anyways, down in the center console, we have our selectable four-wheel drive and Toyota's new MTS system, which is basically off-road drive mode. So you can toggle through a few. They are as follows. There's an auto mode, a dirt, sand, mud, and deep snow mode. And then there's also hill descent control and crawl control, which is very nice. And then there's eco, normal, and sport drive modes for while you're on the road. That's pretty much it up here. I think that the interior quality is largely on par with a $54,000 car, and the leather seats are really nice. They're ventilated in this trim level because of that Toyota TRD premium package. It's really nice. It feels a large, very large step above the TrailBoss that we tested earlier, though that competes a little bit more fairly with the ZR2. I still think this is a nicer interior space. The build quality feels a little bit tighter. I happen to like the infotainment system better. And as a final parting note before we get to the rest of the interior notes, it has a really cool feature. Up here is a Bluetooth speaker. This is actually a working speaker that plays audio while the car is on, and I can power this on and hook my phone up to it and play music through it. It sounds okay. We'll play 4 seconds of copyrighted audio for you, or not. Kidding. It sounds okay, and we probably shouldn't play the music anyways. It's rather nice. It's kind of a bit of a gimmick. The Rivians do it too, but it's always nice to have.
Now that Chase has covered all the bases up front, let's go ahead and tackle the back seats. As you can see, the same leather material that is up front carries over back here. A couple of cool things. There are some cup holders right here, and we have temporarily moved our water bottles to this. They kind of barely fit. I don't know. I don't think these are overly sized water bottles by any means, but I guess your rear passengers still can put a water bottle somewhere. Anyways, you also have two USB-C ports right here and a household style outlet as well, which is always nice, and I always appreciate that. But more importantly, let's talk about legroom. Now, in order to get this shot actually set up and for me to fit in the back of this truck, I actually had to move this seat quite a bit forward. And now, yeah, I have some good room, but that has compromised the space up front, which is less than ideal, and that's really the drawback here in the Tacoma. The TrailBoss had a much roomier rear interior and rear seats. There was much more room for rear passengers, and that just doesn't really exist in the Tacoma. So that's one of the many trade-offs, or not many, but one of the trade-offs you would have to take if you're purchasing a Tacoma versus something like the Colorado. Now let's go ahead and talk about this window. As with many modern trucks and whatever, there is a rear window that is openable, and this one does it automatically just using a switch up front. But yeah, that's not really too insane. Overall, I think the back seat is fine. Again, I wish there was a little bit more room, but then that would come at the cost of either trunk space or just a larger truck in general, which I actually do really like the sizing of this. So it's one of those things that you'll just have to consider. All right, let's talk about the bed for the 2024 Tacoma. And of course, we need to start out with the power tailgate. As you can tell, it automatically will come down for you, just like any power tailgate, but it's kind of loud and a little slow. Anyways, we have a nice bed liner here, and there's this sort of removable part. This is like rubberish, and then you have the actual bed liner underneath it. There's a 120 volt power adapter, so just a household style power adapter, so you could plug in some power tools or something, whatever you'd want to do in the back of your truck. There's also this little storage compartment right here. It's pretty small. I'm not really sure what you'd fit in there, but it is in fact there. There's also these rails with some attachment points, so you could strap something down as well. And then of course there is LED lighting on either side, so that if you're putting something in the night or during the night or when it's dark outside, whenever that would be, you have a little bit of illumination when you're doing so. And lastly, you can actually lift this up and it will automatically close for you, making it so you don't ever have to touch your tailgate, which is nice.
Let's talk off-road performance first, because this is the TRD Off-Road. there's a lot of customization. There's a lot of solutions for you to tackle different obstacles with. Toyota's MTS system allows you to select various terrains like we discussed, and there's also a an electronically disconnecting sway bar set, as well as a locking rear differential, so you have plenty of traction options too. It's really composed off-road. I really like how much disconnecting the sway bar improves the ride. It's extremely drastic how much smoother it is. As a matter of fact, I'll try and demonstrate. See if you can spot the difference. It's really nice off-road. What about on-road?
Yeah, so on-road, I mean, I primarily drove this on the highway before coming up here, and in general, I think on the highway it's really nice. It's very quiet in here, which is kind of funny because we just drove the C43 AMG last week. Much quieter than the old Tacoma, and
yeah, way quieter than that.
Yeah, the power is so much better than that old V6. I mean, just like, you know, the torque especially. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very nice driving experience, at least on-road. The only issues I have is with the seats. I'm just not the biggest fan. These seats are really stiff, and that could just be because it's new, but yeah, they're a little wide. I wish they were a little bit more narrow and offered more lateral support.
Yeah, there's some contention there. I'm pretty okay with them. I also wish that there was a little more lateral support, but I think that they're comfortable enough on the road, unlike Jobe.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's really nothing to complain about, is there? They've kind of hit it out of the park here with the driving experience.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's a awesome like evolution of the Tacoma, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, let's wrap her up.
All right, let's go ahead and conclude our thoughts and opinions on the brand new 2024 Toyota Tacoma.
No, I'm still.
Oh, okay. Well, since Chase is still choking on something, I guess I'll start off. And I really do like this truck a lot. I think the changes to the interior are much appreciated. The previous generation Tacoma was just far too old, and I think the new infotainment system, everything is great. The exterior changes, they didn't try to reinvent the wheel and like make some crazy new design. It's a little bit more boxier and is much more in line with like the Toyota Tundra, which was refreshed, I believe, in 2023. So yeah, overall, it fits our new design language really well. My only thing is that this is $54,000, which for a lot of people to get an off-road vehicle is just going to be too much. I mean, $54,000 is no small chunk of change, which I think is really where the TrailBoss shines. Is, yeah, you don't get all the nice fancy interior stuff, but you still get all of the same off-road capabilities.
Yeah, you're totally right. The TrailBoss has its place. There's no creature comforts, and this is all of the creature comforts, really.
The TrailBoss didn't even have LED headlights.
Yeah, that's right. It had halogens. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And the thing was buried in the menu.
Oh, yeah.
That was not great.
Yeah.
The infotainment in here is vastly superior to that of the TrailBoss or the ZR2 for that matter, which is probably a little bit more equal a competitor. It's probably a much better fit. It adds in some nicer creature comforts, and from the research that we have done prior to filming this, it seems like that interior is a little bit closer. Frankly, we'll just have to sit in them, so hopefully we get that opportunity soon. This is kind of where we feel that the price per dollar ratio kind of tops out in the Tacoma range, admittedly without having sat in anything. The Trail Hunter and a lot of the more luxe trims are going to be more expensive, but still based on the same general infrastructure. So it kind of remains to be seen, and if you would like for us to be able to find out, please do consider liking and subscribing and hitting that notification bell. All of those things help our metrics, which helps us get press cars, which helps us make videos, and stand out here getting bit by horseflies.
And seeing sick dirt bikers. That's what
Dirt bikers.
Yeah, you know, dirt
there's a lot of those out there. A lot of guys named Dirk in Colorado. Anyways, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.